Cheers. I love a good cup of tea, by the way. No sugar, with a drop of milk. And by the way, I'm Ralphie. I'm the host of this channel called Fitter Philosophy, in which I discuss practical life experience-based stoic stuff. To basically kind of share my journey a little bit to help you with yours. Excuse me a second. I have got the cameraman, is shifting the camera at the wrong moment, aren't you, Billy? This is Billy the cat. He's a lovely big fella, aren't you? You're an absolute gem, but you're no use as a cameraman. Oh, bless. I like cats. Cats are independent-minded and civilised, and they keep themselves clean. So I attempt in my life to copy the cat, and generally I manage quite well. Although I don't lick my bottom as effortlessly as you do, you little moggy. There we go. Anyway, the subject of my talk to you today is learning from life and a pub chat, right? It's to do with a pub conversation. I went into a pub, by the way, is the British name for a bar. I went into a bar recently to meet some friends. And basically it was to have a few drinks and a bit of a social. And of course, when you're socialising, you're having a chat. Now, the sort of people I kind of am friends with, we don't have a lot of time to talk about football and sports, because that's the sort of folk we are. We'd rather talk about what's happening in the world, what's affecting everybody, what's happening here, there and everywhere, and how we should interpret it. And the conversation very quickly came round, aided and abetted, of course, by some modest consumption of alcohol, so that we're slightly inebriated, but in nowhere we drunk, because conversations are useless when you're drunk. But when you're just no longer quite sober, this is when our natural boundaries start to bend a little bit, and conversations can become increasingly meaningful and relevant and engaging. This is the thing, it's an engaging conversation. I noticed, by the way, that none of us round the table had a mobile device in our hand. The mobile devices were in the building, of course they were, but they were in pockets and they were in bags. So it's that we had an uninterrupted, non-distracted chat. You know, these things still happen in the modern world. And we're talking about what people want. It's understanding the human species, what's called the humanoid collective. And we're talking basically about how the shift in human consciousness and human attitudes has been greatly enhanced by social media and the internet, presenting both fiction and fact. So we know there's fake news, but in amongst it, we also know there's true news. And it's the stuff we don't get from legacy media, because they are financed to stick to a narrative. And that's fine, because when you're talking about humans, you're talking about a species that isn't particularly smart, and therefore there is a certain extent of manipulation, and it is inevitable no matter how you want to view it. And we're discussing, what do people want? What do humans really want? Do people want freedom? Do people want more time? Do people want more independence, right? Another good way of looking at it. Do people just want more money? And when we got to do people want more money, the conversation really livened up, because of course the majority of people, they want more money, but why? Simple, so they can have more of everything. More time, more holidays, more plastic toys and goodies. A new car, for example, a more powerful car, a bigger house with a bigger door and a bigger gate, and then a bigger holiday, and perhaps a yacht. Start something small, but then move on to something bigger. So a lot of people just want more and more. And here's the challenge for the planet. There's an awful lot of folk out there, and as they start to consume more trash and rubbish is created. And more, unfortunately, I mean, this is a fact of the human condition, the more inequality is generated. There's always been an inequality, but I think the difference in the modern world is it's more visible now, far more visible. And we also know the reasons for it. The industrial, political, economic, social manipulation reasons. And if people have more, particularly when you look at plastics, people will, with more money and more time, will spend it on plastics, goods and toys and gifts and presents and upgrades and enhancements. And then people will want plastic surgery, and people will want business class for holidays. People want more. Now, in itself, there's nothing wrong with that as an objective, but it's when the objective is fulfilled by the pool of resources on the planet. There's only so much there. And it's not only acquiring the resources, but the energy, the pollution and the contamination of the environment accessing these resources, whether it be mineral ores or whether it be wood for paper or furniture, or whether it be just the resources need to expand an airport or build a new airport. And so it goes on. And there's no simple answer to this, except that it's worth, and it really would be worth, in a place like a school, for example, in which the curriculum, which is the school rule book of what needs to get taught by the teachers, which hasn't changed in something like 60 years, certainly not in the UK, if it was upgraded so that it was more of a conversation amongst children and between children about why do we want more? And if we did, what's the consequences of having more, right? So a bigger car, you're using more fuel, it costs more for insurance, you have to basically budget more for it, for the perceived luxury. If you want more plastic toys, you've got to decide, well, how do you dispose of these toys once you finish playing with them and you've wrecked them and trashed them and left them outside in the snow or something? What happens when they go to the landfill? Do they basically, over hundreds and thousands, if not millions of years, just get increasingly pressured back into oil, which is what plastic comes from? Plastic is an oil derivative. And I'm not offering a solution here. I'm saying what matters is the quality of the conversation. We had a great conversation in the bar. It was quite cynical towards humans collectively, but there was also that hopeful side as well, in that, nobody knows what other species in the universe has done so much damage to their own environment or to themselves as they have evolved over millennia. Certainly you can see that humans are notorious self-harmers, and that is masqueraded as polarised war and theatres of conflict situations. But there's so much more to it than that. There's engineered pandemics and the consequences of poor sanitation and serious ill health and lack of clean water. I think that what definitely helps is focusing on the value of what we need, the real value of what we need: water, shelter, and nutritious, clean food to eat, rather than the peddled luxuries of a French handbag made in China or a Swiss watch that's basically all made in a rapid assembly line. With technology, this conversation is going to become more relevant. It's interesting, and I'll give you a positive aspect in this. It's interesting that as people consume, they get tired of consuming volume, and they want to consume value, and they want to consume less quantity, and they want to consume better quality. Because the value and the luxury is in the self-denial and self-control and portion control of it. So, for example, if you loved exotic plain chocolate, for example, it's no treat when you absolutely supersaturate your senses by eating it every day of the week. And if you're into luxury foods like smoked salmon and caviar, and French truffle and Italian truffles, you could get really, really bored of it very, very quickly if you have too much too often. So the real value in the mature palate, in the mature sensibility, is in the determination to control and portion what one consumes, focus on the quality, because the quality of our consumption and our controlled consumption, our self-regulated consumption, is a significant factor in the quality of our life. One of the most underrated consumables are books, by the way. Very few people read books nowadays, and books tend to be where you find some of the most valuable life-changing information. It's knowing where to find it and knowing what you're looking for. And to have that knowledge, you need to read books, and you need to think about what you want to read. But I'm going to conclude the video now by just kind of rewinding a little bit to what do people want? And I think the answer is a lot of people just want to consume more and more and more indefinitely, which is unsustainable for the planet. But along with education and reward, those who consume less could have, for example, a tax advantage. But it already exists, doesn't it? Because when we buy less, we're paying less value-added tax on our purchases. So it's already there. We don't think about it that way, but we should.